Hi guys, this is Chris here from Pell's Properties. Just doing a short video on the 6Cs and why these 6Cs are so important to find a world-class property. So let's go from the top. So what are the 6Cs? So there are going to be 6 steps into this, and if you do follow these and get a full understanding of why we do this, and then you'll be having great success with your properties in the future. Okay, so let's crack on. So with the first one, we're going to be talking about capacity. So capacity, what we need to make sure is that the buy-to-let, the family let properties are the right size. Now these need to be a 3 or 4 bedroom property, not a 1 or 2 bedroom house, flat or apartment. So why is this? Well, first of all, flats and apartments, well, anything with a 1 bedroom really is an issue, because if somebody moves in, they could end up meeting somebody else. They all fall in love, and then they obviously move in together. So, and this becomes a recurring thing each year. So, on the average, tenant costs family-let properties about £1,500. So, by the time you've factored in the void payments, letting agency fees, a lick of paint if it's needed. Sometimes it's nothing, sometimes it could be £300, but on average it's about £1,500 and your tenants, which changes every year. So that means over a decade you would have spent 15 grand, which is a lot of money really. But if you just think, if you have 10 properties, not just the one, that's going to be an extra £150,000, all because you bought the wrong house. So it is an expensive mistake to do. Okay, if you bought a 2-bedroom property, someone moves in, they have 1 child, and then they get pregnant. Again, they're going to need a bigger house, so they go into a 3-bedroom house. So you need to buy 3 or 4 bedroom properties. Okay, buy in the right capacity. So I hope all this makes sense to you. So you want all your properties, what I call lifers. This is someone who says, I want to live here for the rest of my life. My mum lives down the road. My dad lives over there. All my kids go to a local secondary school. You know, this is perfect. I want people to live here forever. If the door handle breaks, what would a lifer do? You know, they just fix it themselves. If the walls need painting, they might phone you up saying, oh, do you mind if we paint the walls? Or, you know, it's fine, actually crack on. I used to get phone calls because the radiator needed bleeding, you know, it's just things like that. Lifers, they just do things themselves. Fresh carpets. So this is what you want, okay? So this is great for you because it's also going to help with the costs. It's going to help with your maintenance costs as well. So, and is a lifer more likely to pay the rent or less likely? Well, more likely to pay the rent, aren't they? You know, these people are going to make it into a home rather than just a house. So you want people who are going to stay long term. When I started renting out properties, I started putting people into properties who I thought are just going to be like me, and you know, they're going to be clean, they're going to respect the property. But the issue with these, when I was getting people like me, you'd either get a promotion or, you know, you get a new job. So every 12 months I'll be moving town or city, and this is exactly what my tenants did. You know, they get promoted, they find a new job, they'd move out, and this started becoming a really big issue. But if you have a 3 or 4 bedroom, you're far more likely to find a lifer who stays there long term. Okay, does this make sense? So that's the first C. The second C we're going to be talking about is city. Now, what do I mean about city? Let me give you an example. If I was going to buy stocks or shares, and I said to you, right, my strategy on the open market, on the open stock market, was to buy JLR stocks and shares, because I originally come from Coventry. JLR were founded in Coventry. You know, it'd be silly, ludicrous just to do it on that basis. You'd think I'm crazy, I don't know what I'm talking, I don't know how to invest. But the problem is, there's a lot of people out there who will tell you to buy locally. Buy local, buy local. But for me personally, if you're doing a job strategy, So job strategy is something like a HMO, a house of multiple occupancies, or if you're doing options or rent to rent or holiday lets, all these are job strategies. What I mean that they're strategies where it takes you extra time to train to make sure the strategy works. You know, these will bring you a lot more income in, but you are trading a lot of time for your effort. Where with the buy-to-let strategies, you know, this is a pure investment strategy. Okay, so say I'm investing in JLR in the stock market. You know, I'm backing the team, the expert team, who are the board of directors of JLR. You know, that expert team, I believe, are going to outperform what the market thinks that they're going to do. So therefore, if I buy stocks and shares, I'm hoping it will go up. I don't then decide to go start running it myself, you know, go to board meetings. That would just cause absolutely chaos. It'd be ludicrous. So I just don't want to get involved. You know, I back the expert team, and investing in a property, a family-let properties, is exactly the same thing. Okay, so it's important you have an expert team. It's so important that you invest in the right area. You know, and that will back the market, and that's where this city comes into the C's. Okay, so let's take a property, for example. So let's take a 3-bedroom property in York, in Yorkshire. Okay, so you could buy a property in Yorkshire for £150,000, and that's going to rent for about £700 a month. Great. Lots of people say York's a nice place, lovely people. It's a cathedral town, but if you went down the road and you came across Scarborough, for that same amount of money you just bought in York, that one property for £150,000, in Scarborough now you can buy 2 properties at £75,000 each, and these would rent out for about £560 a month. Okay, so now you've invested the same amount of money, it's taking the same amount of time, but you're getting £1120 a month instead of £700 a month. Okay, that's an extra £420 a month. So just by looking at the, going down the road, looking at a city, the right place, you've just earned yourselves an extra £5,000 a year in rent with the exact same amount of money. So, and another thing is with these properties, they go up the same over time. So for example, if York went up 10%, 12 months later, Scarborough would also go up 10%. If York went down in 10%, Scarborough would go down in 10%. But over time, long term, they go up the same. Okay, so if they're going to go up the same, I'd rather have more rent in the meantime. I'm sure you would as well. Okay, so we need to invest in the best city to get the best possible returns. Okay, now that was just an example. There are a lot better places out there to buy. So you're not just buying just because it's local to you. It's in your street or your local area or your local town. Okay, so for example, a buy-to-let in London, it's popped. It's gone completely upside down. You just can't get the cash flow in London. So the cash flow in London to support a family buy-to-let is gone. So that's why there's loads of investors in London, really wealthy, multi-millionaire investors are saying, well, you know what? You know the right areas to invest. Can you just invest for us? So it's important to invest in the right area. It's huge. Like I said, you go up north, you can buy 2 properties for the same price of one. If you went down south to London, the properties just do not work. So finding the right city is a key step. Okay, so what is the next C? Okay, so the next C is capital. It's capital growth. So when you invest in property, you're after 2 key things, 2 key benefits. First of all is that you're looking for capital growth. And then the second thing you're looking for is great cash flow. They need both of these at the table, not just one or the other. You've got to make sure that you've got the good capital growth and really good cash flow. Okay, so in terms of the capital growth, how do we make sure that the properties you're going to buy have good capital growth? Well, in the UK, over the last 85 years, on an average, the UK property market has been going up about 7.9% a year. That's on average. So the national average, that's including all the peaks and troughs, so all the drops. So that is a pretty cool capital growth, really. So instead of gambling, I think I'm going to build next to a train line over here, or there's this area that's just going to start regenerate. I know what, I'm going to put all my money into there, wait for it to regenerate, which could be 10 years. And then obviously your money is going to be stuck in that deal for those 10 years for it to regenerate. So instead of doing that, by taking all the risks out, by the time you've done that, all the experts have already put the money into that area 6 to 12 months ago. So all the big guns, they've already got the bottom dollar price. So when you've already invested, you think you're getting a deal, but in fact the inflation's already happened. So you haven't. Okay, I hope this makes sense. So how can we make sure that we get a good capital growth? So like I said, if the national average is great, well, let's try and get the national average, okay? And so by doing this, there's going to be 4 parts to this to make sure we get good capital growth with the national average. So you've got to buy in a town or a city. If you buy in a village and the local factory shuts down, so during the pandemic, like we are now, if the local factory shuts down, 100 people lose their jobs, this is going to be a big problem. So you buy in a town or a city, you get this close to a secondary school, you make sure it's in a great public transport network, great road networks. Okay, so if it ticks all these 4 boxes, then fantastic. So I'll quickly go through them again. So the first one is you need to buy in a town or a city with a population of 90,000 or more. The second one is it's got to be close to a secondary school. Now, what we mean by a great secondary school is that if you go off the Ofsted reports, it needs to be either great or outstanding. And the reason why we do secondary schools and not primary schools is that at the primary level, parents are more happy to move their kids around. But once they start hitting secondary school, they want the stability. They've just started getting to know their friends, and most importantly, they're really gearing up for their GCSEs. So the less disturbance they have in their lives, the better, really. Okay. Third one, great public transport. So good bus networks, rail networks, if it's in that town or city. Again, if you lived in a village, the buses would probably go every hour, where if it's in a good town or city, they could be every 8, 10, 12, 15 minutes. Okay. And then the fourth one is a good road networks. So if you're in a town or a city with a population of 90,000 plus, to be honest, you're more than likely to get really good public transport and road networks, okay? Like I said, if it ticks all these 4 things, you will get great capital growth. If it doesn't, and then you're not. All right? Okay, so there's just one more final piece for the puzzle for this. What we need to do, we just found all those, we need to find the properties within 5 miles within the city centre. Now, how do we find 5 miles within the city centre? Well, we can either use the local station or the town hall. So if you went to somewhere like Rightmove, you can find these and then you can put 5 miles out and that will show you the area within you need to buy. So, but if you went somewhere like Manchester, that's a big city, you don't want to be going 7, 8 miles out of the city centre, because then you won't necessarily get the national average of the capital growth. So this is why we always stay within 5 miles. Okay, right, so we are on to the 4th C now. So what is the 4th C? 4th C is on cash flow. Remember I said previously there's 2 things we need to bring to the table. That was capital growth, and now we're going to be talking about the cash flow. So with cash flow, you've got to make sure that the property cash flows really, really well. The cash flow isn't the rent minus the mortgage equals the profit. And it definitely isn't the rent minus today's ridiculously low interest rates, which equals profit. Okay, don't get fooled by people who tell you this. This is a completely wrong way of looking at it, and if you do, you'll just end up getting burnt. Okay, so don't base it on those. So how are we going to work it out? So we're going to plan for the cash flow. Right, so here's the rent. Fantastic. What's the mortgage? Do we know today? Do we go by today's incredibly low interest rate? No, we don't. So what do? We're going to look at the banks and see what they're going to be borrowing over a 5-year deal, because they're going to be pretty confident that the rates will stay below that for at least 5 years. So, for example, if the banks are doing a 4% deal over 5 years, then what we're going to be doing, we're going to add another 1% on there to make it a 5% deal, 5% over 5 years. And then what that extra 1% does, that's going to cover us for at least 7 to 9 years of really good cash flow. Okay, so if we model it on that, we probably pay £100 less on the mortgage in reality, but if we might model it on the higher figure, that extra £101 is going to be in our back pocket anyway. So there's a few other things we need to factor in when we're looking into this. So we need to plan for the maintenance. Now, one of my JV partners, he's got hundreds and hundreds of properties out there, and it's normally about £1,000 a year, so it's on an average about £80 a month for maintenance. So we need to factor that in. What else do we need to factor in? We need to look at insurance. So the insurance is about £20 a month. You can get a little bit less, but on an average, let's just say £20 for this. What else? We need to factor in the letting agency fees. So letting agency fees, this could be anything from 8 to 12%. But on an average, let's just say 10%. So that's 10% of whatever the rent is. The agency are going to take their fee. So, okay, so it's another factor we need to add into it. But then once we've budgeted for all these things, the money that's left, so let's say it's a couple £100, that £200 is now your profit. Okay? So if we factor in the 4 things, and then whatever's left is our profit. But then let's even make sure this is airtight. So we really want to make sure that we're doing this properly. So even if the property is empty for the 12th month of the year, so you rent it out for 11 months of the year, and then there's a void period of a month in the 12th month. Obviously, this isn't going to happen because you're going to be following the 6 C's on how to find a world-class property. So, but worst case scenario, if it was empty for 1 month, then what we need to do, we need to make sure there's enough profit in that £200 a month to cover the rent in that 12th month. Okay, so of course there is for the £200. But then also don't forget, when you are doing your mortgage, it is on a interest only, and it's not going to be on repayments. Okay. Again, don't forget that when you are looking at mortgages, it's going to be interest only and not repayments. Okay, so let's make sure that the cash flow is great. Okay, so by the way, this particular product we're talking about is a cash flow builder. Okay, so we've got to make sure that properties we're buying have got a traditional sense of 8% yield. Now, what that means, you're going to compare you're going to get the purchase price against the whole year's worth of rent. Okay, and that needs to be 8%. So if the purchase price was £100,000, then the rent would need to be £8,000 a year. Okay, and then from that £8,000, we're going to divide that by 12, which will give us 666 and 66 feet. So it's all the sixes. Okay, so we know now that we need to rent the property for £666. So make sure that the cash flows are extremely high, and it will cover the 12th month. Okay, so like I said, this is called a cash flow builder because it gives you really good cash flow while we are waiting for the properties to go up for capital growth. Okay, so win-win, brilliant. What is the next C in the 6 C's? So the next C we're going to be looking at is check. Check. What do we mean by check? So we've got to make sure that the properties we're going to buy are going to rent out before we actually buy them. It's no good buying a 3-4 bedroom property in the perfect city. It's got great schools around it. The capital growth is really good. You think the cash flow is going to be about £250 a month. But then you advertise it to rent out and only 2 people are interested. You know, if only 2 people reply, none of them might want it, or maybe one of them wants it. So now they're picking you rather than you picking the tenant. And then you're going to have problems, okay? Because you just won't get the cash flow you thought. So we advertise the property to rent first before we buy. We put it in the local paper. You're going to advertise it online. Whatever you're going to do, you do it before you buy it. And then what we're looking for at least 10 replies in that first week. If you get those 10 replies, great, fantastic, you know it works. If you don't get these 10 replies in the first week, then we need to walk away from that deal, okay? So it doesn't matter how great the deal is, we've got to walk away. The reason why, because there's always going to be in the next street, in the next town, or the next city. You know, a house that is identical to this one, but that house will have a massive demand of rent, okay? So if you have 20 people interested in your property, we know that 10 of them are going to go and view it, and 5 of them will want it. So now we're in a really good position. You can start asking for statements, references, guarantors. But if you're only going to get 5 people who reply, or 8 replies, you're going to walk away. You don't want to let your tenant choose you. You need to choose your tenant. Right, okay? So we are on to the last C. So what is the last C in the 6 C's and how to find a world-class property? So the last C is for contingency. Always got to have a contingency plan, okay? So when we're investing, we don't put all the money into the deal, right? Okay, so if we had 100,000 to invest, make sure that with that 100k, on an average, we're going to hold back about 4.2%. But just to be extra safe, we're going to say 4.5% we're going to hold back. So for that 100k, you had to invest 95.5 of it you're going to play with, so that's in the deal. And the other £4,500 you're going to hold back, and you're going to have it as a rainy day bank account. If you had £1 million, if you had £1 million on a property or properties, you know that's going to be 955 you're going to invest, and then that 45,000, that 45k you're going to hold back again. That's going to be for your rainy day piggy bank. Okay, so why do we do that? Because you'll never personally need to put a penny more into the investments. Okay, this is why you're always going to have a contingency there to back up the investment. If you put all your money into the deal, and if something went wrong, then we've got a problem, because now you're going to have to start pulling money out of your own money, out your family's money, and then this property is not a pure investment. It doesn't look after itself, okay? So all our investments are designed to look after themselves, so you're not actually digging into your own profit into your own pockets, okay? There's nothing worse than going into your own pockets. I had it years ago, one of my properties. It was a really bad winter, lots of heavy snow. My tenant phoned me on Christmas Eve to say obviously that the boiler had broken. So I did manage to get somebody around on Boxing Day. But again, I had to pay out of the family money. And obviously these fixes were stupid amounts over that particular period. But you know, it is what it is. Hence why we always have a contingency, so you're not digging into your own pocket. So, but if you do buy a property, and if you do follow the 6 C's, you know, in how to find a world-class property, these are outstanding gifts for yourself, and they're going to serve you and your family for years and years to come without worrying, especially with the pandemic we're in at the moment where there's a lot going on. If you follow these 6 C's checks, like I said, they're going to be great gifts for you and they will serve you for years and years to come. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this video on the 6 C's on how to find a world-class property. Please like it below if you have, or if you know somebody who's looking to get into property or just looking for a bit of extra income and they want to get a buy-to-let. Please share this 6 C's with them so they don't get burnt and their properties are profitable for them. Okay. My name's Chris from Pell's Properties. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this. So invest with knowledge, invest in yourself, create your dream life.